There was a time when thinking had room. A person could sit with a question for hours, days, or even years. They could walk with an idea, write it down, return to it, struggle with it, change their mind, see it from another angle. Not every thought needed an immediate answer. Not every question needed a quick search. Not every opinion had to be formed instantly. But today, deep thinking feels harder. Not because people have become less intelligent, but because the conditions that support deep thinking are disappearing. We live in a world that rewards speed more than depth, reaction more than reflection, information more than understanding, noise more than silence. A question appears, and we search for an answer within seconds. A headline appears, and we form an opinion before reading the full story. A disagreement appears, and we respond before we understand. A difficult feeling appears, and we distract ourselves before we examine it. The mind is constantly moving. But movement is not the same as thought. This is one of the great confusions of modern life. We are processing more information than ever, but not necessarily thinking more deeply. We are exposed to more opinions than ever, but not necessarily becoming wiser. We are consuming more content than ever, but not necessarily understanding ourselves or the world better. Deep thinking is not the same as having many thoughts. A crowded mind can be very active and still not be clear. Deep thinking requires space, attention, patience, silence, the courage to stay with complexity. And those are exactly the things modern life often weakens. This episode is about the lost skill of deep thinking. The ability to move beyond quick reactions, beyond surface opinions, beyond borrowed conclusions, beyond the first emotional impulse. Deep thinking is the ability to stay with a question long enough for it to become honest, and that is becoming rare. One reason deep thinking feels harder today is that attention has become fragmented. Most people do not experience one long, uninterrupted stream of thought. They experience pieces, a message, a notification, a video, a headline, a task, a memory, a worry, a sound, a comment, a recommendation, another notification. The mind is pulled from one thing to another before it can settle, and deep thinking cannot happen in constant interruption. It is like trying to grow a tree by moving it every few minutes. The roots never go deep. Many people today begin thinking about something important, but within seconds, another signal interrupts them. The thought breaks. The emotional thread disappears. The deeper question is postponed. And over time, the mind adapts. It becomes better at skimming, scanning, reacting, and switching, but worse at staying. And deep thinking requires staying. Staying with a problem after the first answer appears. Staying with a question after it becomes uncomfortable. Staying with uncertainty without rushing into certainty. Staying with silence long enough for something deeper to rise. But we are not trained to stay anymore. We are trained to move on. This is why many people feel mentally tired but not mentally satisfied. They have consumed a great deal but digested very little. Information enters the mind but does not become insight, and insight takes time. Insight is what happens when information is connected to experience, reflection, memory, moral judgment, and emotional honesty. A person can know many facts and still lack insight. They can repeat impressive ideas and still not understand themselves. They can quote experts and still avoid the question that matters most. What do I actually think? What do I truly believe? What is this teaching me? How should this change the way I live? These are deep thinking questions, and they cannot be answered well in a distracted state. Another reason deep thinking feels harder is that we are surrounded by ready-made opinions. The modern world does not only give us information, it gives us interpretations. Every issue arrives already packaged with commentary, outrage, agreement, opposition, labels, conclusions, and emotional cues. Before we have time to think, we are told how to react. This creates a subtle danger. A person may mistake adopting an opinion for forming one. They may hear a confident voice and absorb it. They may see a popular reaction and join it. They may repeat a phrase because it feels intelligent. They may defend a position they have never truly examined. This does not mean outside voices are always wrong. We need teachers. We need experts. We need conversation. We need exposure to other minds. But there is a difference between learning from others and outsourcing your thinking entirely. Deep thinking requires an inner pause. A moment where you ask, is this true? Is this complete? What is missing? Who benefits if I believe this? What evidence supports it? What evidence challenges it? Am I reacting from understanding or from fear? Am I agreeing because it is wise or because it is popular? These questions slow us down, and that is precisely why they matter. Because when thinking disappears, manipulation becomes easier. A distracted mind can be directed. A reactive mind can be provoked. A hurried mind can be sold almost anything. A fearful mind can be controlled by whatever offers quick certainty. Deep thinking protects the inner life from being captured too easily. It gives the mind a gate. Not everything gets in automatically. Not every opinion becomes yours. Not every fear becomes your truth. Not every trend becomes your direction. Not every loud voice becomes your authority. Deep thinking gives you the ability to step back and say, let me look at this more carefully. That phrase may sound simple, but in a fast culture, it is powerful, because speed often rewards confidence, not wisdom. The fastest person in the room may sound convincing. The loudest opinion may feel dominant. The most repeated idea may seem true. But wisdom is not always fast. Some truths need time to become clear. Some decisions need distance. Some emotions need settling. Some questions need more than one angle. Some conflicts need more listening than speaking. Deep thinking respects complexity. It does not rush to flatten everything into a simple slogan. This is especially important because many of the most important parts of life are not simple. Relationships are not simple. Grief is not simple. Identity is not simple. Ethics are not simple. History is not simple. Human motivation is not simple. The future is not simple. But modern communication often pushes complex things into small containers. Short posts, quick takes, sharp arguments, emotional headlines, simple blame, instant certainty. And when complex life is squeezed into shallow formats, we may begin to lose patience for depth. We want the answer without the process, the conclusion without the struggle, the benefit without the discipline, the wisdom without the waiting. But deep thinking is not efficient in the usual sense. It wanders. It questions. It returns. It wanders. It questions. It returns. It notices contradictions. It changes direction. It admits uncertainty. It sometimes says, I do not know yet. And that can feel uncomfortable in a world where everyone is expected to have a position immediately. But the ability to say, I do not know yet, is not weakness. It may be the beginning of wisdom. Because false certainty is easy. Careful understanding is harder. This is one of the reasons deep thinking has moral value. It teaches humility. The deeper you think, the more you realize that first impressions are often incomplete. People are more complicated than labels. Problems are often older than they appear. Your own motives are not always pure. Your emotions are not always accurate. Your side of the story is not the whole story. Deep thinking makes arrogance harder to maintain. It does not make you passive. It makes you more careful. And carefulness is not the same as confusion. It is the discipline of honoring reality enough not to reduce it too quickly. But deep thinking is not only about public issues or intellectual topics, it is also about your personal life. Many people are living with decisions they have never deeply examined. Why am I chasing this? Why does this bother me so much? Why do I keep repeating this pattern? What am I avoiding? What do I actually need? What kind of life am I building? What is costing me my peace? These questions require more than casual thought. They require honesty, and honesty requires quiet. This is why deep thinking is closely connected to solitude and rest. When we are exhausted, distracted, and overstimulated, we do not usually ask better questions. We look for relief. But when the mind has space, deeper questions begin to surface. Not always loudly. Sometimes as a quiet discomfort, a repeated feeling, a memory that returns, a sense that something is not aligned, a desire for a different kind of life. Deep thinking helps us listen to these signals instead of burying them. It turns experience into understanding. Without deep thinking, life can become a series of events we never fully interpret. We go through things, but do not learn from them. We feel things, but do not understand them. We repeat patterns, but do not examine them. We make choices, but do not ask what they reveal. Deep thinking helps life become meaningful. It gathers the scattered pieces. It asks what they are trying to say. And this is why losing deep thinking is so costly. When people stop thinking deeply, they do not only lose intellectual sharpness, they lose self-understanding, they lose moral clarity, they lose emotional maturity, they lose the ability to make wise decisions under pressure. A shallow mind may still be busy, but it becomes easier to confuse urgency with importance. Everything feels immediate. Everything demands reaction. Everything competes for attention. But deep thinking asks, what truly matters here? That question can save a life from being controlled by noise. So how do we recover the lost skill of deep thinking? First, we must protect attention. Not perfectly, not dramatically, but intentionally. Create spaces where the mind is not constantly interrupted. A quiet morning, a walk without input, a notebook instead of a screen, a reading session without checking messages, a few minutes after a conversation to reflect, a pause before responding to something emotional. Deep thinking begins where interruption is reduced. Second, we must slow down our certainty. Before forming an opinion, ask one more question. Before reacting, take one more breath. Before repeating an idea, examine it. Before judging a person, consider what you may not know. This does not mean you never take a stand. It means your stand becomes stronger because it is not built on impulse alone. Third, we must read and listen in ways that stretch the mind. Not only short fragments, not only things we already agree with, not only content designed to entertain or confirm us. Read something slower. Listen to someone thoughtful. Study an issue beyond the headline. Let yourself encounter complexity without immediately escaping. The mind grows deeper by meeting things that require depth. Fourth, we must write. Writing is one of the oldest tools for deep thinking because it slows the mind down. It forces vague feelings into clearer language. It reveals contradictions. It shows us what we actually believe, not just what we felt in the moment. You do not need to write perfectly. A simple page can begin with, what am I really thinking about today? What keeps returning to my mind? What am I avoiding? What do I need to understand more honestly? The purpose is not performance. The purpose is clarity. Finally, we must become comfortable with not knowing immediately. Some questions need time. Let them breathe. You do not need to force every answer today. You do not need to resolve every uncertainty instantly. You do not need to turn every thought into a conclusion. Sometimes wisdom grows quietly in the background while you live, observe, listen, and return. Deep thinking is not a luxury. It is how human beings remain inwardly free. Without it, we become more reactive, more suggestible, more anxious, and more easily shaped by whatever surrounds us. With it, we recover a slower strength, the strength to pause, to question, to examine, to understand, to choose. And maybe that is what modern life most urgently needs. Not more noise, not more speed, not more instant opinion, but people who can think clearly in a confused age. People who can sit with complexity. People who can resist manipulation. People who can examine themselves honestly. People who can choose wisdom over reaction. Deep thinking feels harder than ever because the world has become louder than ever. But it is not gone. It can be recovered. One quiet moment at a time. One careful question at a time. One honest thought at a time. So before you rush to the next answer, pause. Before you accept the next opinion, examine it. Before you react to the next provocation, breathe. Because your mind was not made only to consume. It was made to understand. And understanding takes time.